If you're a prospective international student thinking about heading to Italy in 2026, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're not just going to read off a boring list of prices. We're building you a strategic financial playbook. Because look, when you step back and look at the global landscape of higher education, choosing Italy gives you an absolutely massive advantage in terms of your intellectual return on investment. Seriously, when you compare the cost of living here to places like the UK, Australia, the US, Germany, or the Nordic countries, it's a total game changer. But to truly unlock that advantage, you need a solid plan.
I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in the dream, isn't it? The idea of studying in a country where the centuries-old cultural legacy of Michelangelo literally intersects with the cutting-edge, modern innovation of brands like Ferrari. It's this incredible place where history and the future coexist. But navigating the Italian student economy? That is a critical exercise in strategic financial planning. To actually enjoy those high-density cultural assets and world-class academics without constantly stressing about money, we need to take a really data-driven approach to your budget.
Okay, let's dive into this. To demystify these living costs, we're going to break everything down into 6 clear steps today. First, the Italian student economy in 2026. Then, the North-South divide. Next, choosing your university city, followed by mastering essential living expenses. Then, we'll tackle the infamous €800 challenge, and finally, wrap up with some strategic rules for budgeting.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the Italian student economy in 2026.
So before you even think about budgeting for pizza and rent, you kind of have to understand the broader economic environment you're walking into. Current data shows a really significant stabilization as Italy recovers heading into 2026. Households are actually seeing a nominal income growth of 5.3%, which translates to a really solid plus 4.1% increase in real terms. That's the good news. But as a strategic planner, you need the full picture here. Real incomes are still about 4.9% below their 2007 pre-crisis peak. So what does this actually mean for you as a student? Well, while purchasing power is for sure improving across the country, the environment is still highly sensitive to price fluctuations. Literally every euro counts.
Moving right along to Section 2, the North-South divide. Listen, when it comes to your financial experience as a student in Italy, geography is the ultimate determinant. It's like a giant puzzle. Italy basically operates on a tiered economy. Let's look at the two extremes. On one hand, you have the highly prosperous Northeast. Here, the median household income is over €37,000, and the poverty risk is incredibly low, at just 11.3%. Now, yes, the costs here are higher, but your statistical probability of actually securing a part-time student job, way better. On the other hand, you have the South, also known as the Mezzogiorno. The entry price for student living down there is noticeably lower, but incomes are 29% lower too. The poverty risk jumps all the way up to 38.4%, and local labor markets are much more constrained. So you really have to weigh your trade-offs carefully.
And this brilliantly illustrates something absolutely crucial for our international viewers. We call it the foreigner gap. The data shows that the risk of poverty or social exclusion jumps to a staggering 41.5% for households with at least one foreign citizen. Compare that to just 20.1% for Italian households. That is double the risk. This demographic asymmetry basically means you're facing specific financial hurdles that domestic students just don't have to deal with, which is exactly why winging it isn't an option. Careful planning is non-negotiable.
All right, Section 3, choosing your university city.
So how do we actually mitigate that risk? By acting as your strategic consultant right now to help you pick the best city. Here's a super clear view of the 2026 marketplace based on local housing demand and regional income benchmarks. Look at Milan right at the top there. Total monthly budgets are ranging from €1,350 to €1,650. That premium price tag? It's heavily driven by rent. A single room alone can hit €900. Bologna and Rome offer a slightly more balanced middle ground, averaging between €1,150 and €1,450. But check out the bottom of the list.
I really want to explicitly call out Trieste for a second. If you want maximum intellectual and financial ROI, Trieste is the high-value alternative. It's located up in that prosperous Northeast region we just talked about, meaning you get superior public services and a much lower regional poverty risk. But the total monthly budget, it's sitting comfortably between €1,000 and €1,250. It is a wildly more accessible price point than saturated student markets like Bologna, while still offering an absolutely incredible quality of life.
Let's jump into Section 4, Mastering Essential Living Expenses.
Okay, so once you've chosen your city, your primary goal is fixed cost management. You want to avoid what statisticians call the 5.2% grave deprivation threshold, which basically means you get to a point where you literally can't afford an unforeseen expense. And the biggest mistake international students make here? Healthcare. In Italy, you have access to the SSN, the Italian National Health Service. Let me be super clear about this. This is a massive advantage over the expensive private pay and reimburse insurance models you'll find in places like the US or Australia. The SSN gets you a primary care physician, a night and holiday medical service called Guardia Medica, and full access to the 118 emergency number.
And the cost for voluntary student enrollment in the SSN? You're not going to believe this. It is an incredibly low €149.77 for the entire year. It is easily the single best financial decision you can make the minute you arrive. But there is a catch.
Actually, scratch that. It's a hard rule. You must understand the strict calendar year rule. Coverage is strictly valid from January 1st to December 31st, totally regardless of when you actually pay for it. So if you arrive for the fall semester and pay that fee in September, you're going to lose your coverage just 3 months later on December 31st. You absolutely must align your payment with the January start date to maximize that investment.
Now, what about daily survival? Transport. Here are your actionable hacks. First off, never ever rely on single-trip tickets. They just cause unpredictable spikes in your spending. You want to lock down monthly subscriptions, known as abbonamenti, which cover the bus, tram, and subway. Second, when you're traveling between cities, heavy preference goes to regional trains. Look, the high-speed trains like the Frecciarossa are gorgeous and incredibly fast, but they are super expensive and just not sustainable on a student budget. Finally, take advantage of sharing mobility. Electric scooters or bikes are perfect for that flexible, eco-friendly last mile to campus.
Which brings us to Section 5, the infamous €800 challenge.
Let's tackle what is probably the absolute most common budgeting question prospective students ask online. Can I really live in Italy with just €800 per month? It sounds appealing, right? And sure, maybe some older guides out there suggest it's possible, but let's look at the hard 2026 data and settle this definitively.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this specific number right here, €1,103 per month. That is the actual individual poverty risk threshold in Italy right now when you compare it to the median income. So let's just dramatically debunk this myth right now. An €800 budget puts you nearly 30% below the statistical poverty line. Trying to survive on €800 in a major university hub like Milan, Rome, or Bologna, that doesn't just mean you're being frugal. It literally places you in a state of grave material deprivation. It means you won't be able to afford a simple meal out with your friends, you won't fully participate in university life, and a single unforeseen expense, like say a broken laptop or a delayed flight, could completely derail your semester financially. It is simply not a calculated trade-off we'd ever recommend.
And finally, Section 6, Strategic Rules for Budgeting. Let's wrap this up. We want to empower you so you can actually enjoy everything Italy has to offer without the constant stress. So here is your ultimate 3-step strategic playbook for financial sustainability. Rule 1. You must have a mandatory €2,000 buffer fund. Given that 41.5% foreigner poverty risk we discussed earlier, this is a structural requirement, folks, not a luxury. Rule 2. Synchronize your SSN healthcare enrollment to January, so you get a full 12 months of coverage for your €150. Rule 3. Adopt a subscription-first mobility mindset. Lock in your abbonamenti and stop the financial bleed of buying single tickets. Italy remains beautifully open to wonder. And as we mentioned right at the start, when you compare it to the massive costs of studying in the US, the UK, Australia, Germany, or the Nordics, Italy offers an unbelievable financial advantage for those who are prepared. But remember, the most successful international residents are those who treat their budget with the exact same rigor as their thesis. You don't want financial surprises distracting you from your education. So, what does this all mean for you? Which tier of the Italian economy aligns best with your own strategic study journey? Start planning, stay disciplined, and we'll see you in Italy.